situation.
We're not going to get into that.
Yeah, no. That's a whole nother trauma from my wife.
See, we're gonna. We'll don't leave it up to me. We'll make this very generic and very human.
There you go.
Yeah. Human approach is much more acceptable. Well.
All right.
Okay. This is. I don't think.
One thing you could tell me is when you would like me to read the intro for Randy. Do you want it before the song?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Oh, are we doing the song right off?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. I just want to be ready to, so I don't have to make a big, complicated move, you know.
It's just performance. It's the stuff you do all the time. What do you care?
No, I just like to know what it is, though. I don't
Put the
care.
microphone in front of him, and he's on.
He's
I'm
on.
good.
That's great. Oh, you're a great guy anyway. You are doing some great things, not just performing. So,
So,
shall we?
let's.
You guys ready?
I think so.
All right. So
We have speed.
Not yet. I'm gonna introduce
No,
you.
I know. I'm just.
I don't trust
All
him.
right,
Man. You get the guitar.
Yeah,
and-
after I read this, I am going to turn it over to you, and then what I would do next is you can turn it back to me to read the intro.
Say that again.
After I read our standard introduction,
Right.
I will, as usual, turn it over
Right.
to you, and then when you're ready, you can give it back to me, and I'll read the bio, and then
Did you embellish the bio a little to help?
I edited the bio.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope
Embellish
you did. I
the
hope you
bio?
edited it. Yeah, I mean, you always write a bio. You're much better than you really are when you write your bio.
Your
I did
bio
that.
is
Wow.
big, man.
I know.
It's
Well, it's got
huge.
40 years in the making. What can you do?
It's huge. We went over it this morning. It's like, holy mackerel.
Yeah,
That's
about,
good.
about that.
Man of experience.
Yeah. An old man is what you're saying?
I didn't say that. How could you? I'm 10 years older than you. So
You are you? How old are you?
73.
Oh, yeah, you are 10 years older than me.
I'm 60.
See what you can do with
Yeah.
working out at the gym.
I'll be
every day, riding
63.
horses
I'll be
every day.
63 in August. My girlfriend just turned 60. My wife.
How old do you think
It's
she
my
is?
wife, by the way.
Jeez.
She's 62,
I just
but doesn't look it. But she just told me she was. So
Oh, okay.
I would have guessed you might have been 10 years younger than me. So we had a little trifecta here
We're all 10 less.
in our minds. I'm only about 15, actually.
That's,
That's obvious.
I know.
I
That's
go there
obvious. That's
too.
okay.
Got me where I am today, bro. I'm where I am.
Hey, you know what? It's all right. Lightens up the load that
It
you're
does.
really
It does.
carrying.
It does.
We'll talk about that today too.
Okay.
Yeah. Human is the answer around here. And just leave it to the old clinician to make it humanized.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
No more clinical. Okay. All right, we ready?
all right, we're live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Survivor's Guide to Life on KPCA Petaluma 103.3 FM. I'm Jenny Stevenson, your host, and joining me is Dr. Peter Bernstein. Today we continue in our series on how to survive through adversity. Dr. Bernstein, or Peter as he likes to be called, is a coach and mentor with 49 years of experience helping people survive and grow through trauma, struggles, and hard times, the stuff of real life. The goal of our series is to help you discover what we've experienced, that adversity is more than a trial to endure. It can be an exciting opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive.
I said it all.
At one point or another,
It's for real.
it's for real.
Yeah.
And we live it too.
We live it, and we have a guest here who lives it too. And he's a great performer, so you'd never know what but we'll expose it today.
Yeah.
And we have a very special guest and a very good friend of ours, Randy Mayfield. And all the way, I want to say from St. Louis, but he's actually from Iraq, Afghanistan. Where else do you...
Ukraine.
Kenya, Ukraine, Russia.
Wherever there's trouble,
Yeah,
that's where he goes.
I look for trouble.
Yeah, and he's one of these, like me, he doesn't run from the problems, he engages with them, and he's right there on the front lines. He's had a whole life of that, a whole career of it. He's an amazing guy, we love him, and he brings a lot of goodness to a lot of people under tremendous duress and stress, and he's a man after my own heart. Anyway, Randy has a bio that's probably 10 pages long. We're not going to read all 10 pages to you, but you should know a little bit about him. And then he's going to, by the way, he is a singer, and his range of singing goes from opera to country western. He's a writer. He's a great performer. And that's just what he does on the surface. How he uses it, though, is to help others. And he does a great job of it in some very serious situations. We're so glad to have him here today.
Yes.
We really are. It's special.
This is a,
Yeah, this is special because he is a caregiver of immense proportions.
and we'll hear about that today.
Yeah, he really is. But anyway, Jenny is going to read you some of his bio. It'll only take about a half an hour.
So I will speed read slightly because I could go on and on.
Yeah, but I think it'd be a good idea to read some.
Yeah, let's do a little here.
Mhm.
So Randy Mayfield is an accomplished singer and songwriter who's traveled extensively both in the U.S. and internationally to over 90 countries. He's also a pastor, a missionary, a husband, a father, and a grandfather. Randy's performed in many venues in his hometown of St. Louis, as well as in Nashville's Grand Ole Opry and the Bluebird Cafe. Randy's played concert halls all over Great Britain, Europe, and the former Soviet Union. He's also performed and shared a message in federal and local prisons across the United States. He's appeared on numerous television and radio programs and sung the national anthem at many professional sporting events. Randy has opened concerts for well-known Christian artists including Stephen Curtis Chapman, Jackie Velasquez, and the Imperials. He's performed with symphony orchestras in Russia, Hungary, England, and Iraq, featuring music from his latest CD, Classic Randy Mayfield. Randy is an ordained minister who owns an honorary degree of Doctor of Divinity from Irpin Seminary in Kiev, Ukraine. Randy and his wife Sharon have 2 adult children and 1 beautiful granddaughter. So Randy is the missions and outreach pastor at Central Presbyterian Church in St. Louis, where he served for over 40 years. He leads a number of mission trips and preaches around the world each year. He serves on numerous boards of faith-based ministries and is a chaplain for his local police department. He leads chapel services for the St. Louis Cardinals and the Rams, and his music is available on cdbaby.com, iTunes, Amazon, and other music outlets.
Wow.
How
Yeah,
did you-
that's impressive. I wish I knew that guy.
Well, you know, I was going to say, I don't know him.
This guy?
Wow, that is
this
impressive.
guy?
And you know what? His music is really good because I have a Z06 Corvette with modified exhausts that are really loud. And I play his classical music and it's louder than my exhaust.
There we go.
And it keeps me, it's great music, and I love his classical the best,
I
personally.
do too.
And if you know anything about Andrea Bocelli, he sounds very much like him.
Yes.
And it's hard to tell the difference, really.
Well, thank you. That's a great
Yeah,
compliment.
You're welcome. But I asked him to do me a favor today before we get going. One of my favorite songs is Hallelujah, originally written and sung by Leonard Cohen. And I heard him sing it yesterday, and I just loved it. And he graciously was willing to do it for the show today, before we get going. So we'll start in what we call funneling. We'll start with it, keep it light, and we'll get down to the other stuff. You know, we'll go gradually.
We'll get there.
But anyway, I think you're going to love this, and he's ready to perform. The minute you put a microphone in front of him anyway,
Yeah, I'm ready.
he starts performing.
Yes.
So he's ready, and you're gonna love this. It's a beautiful song, and he sings it so beautifully.
Yeah, we're only going to do a few of the verses. I think it has about 40 verses total. We'll do a couple of them.
Whatever you say.
I heard there was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. Well, she tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throne, she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. There was a time when you let me know what's really going on below, but now you never show that to me, do you? I remember when I moved in you, the Holy Ghost was moving too, and every breath we drew was hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
I got goosebumps. Hey, I just realized Leonard Cohen had Samson and Delilah mixed up with David and Bathsheba.
Yeah, he kind of combined
He did. He
a couple of
combined
the
them.
Bible stories, David with Samson.
That's
Yeah.
the first time I heard that in that
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah, people have said, okay, so he's got the girl bathing on the roof and her beauty overthrew him. That's obviously David. And then she broke your throne, she cut your hair. That's Samson.
Samson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I've heard so many word changes in this.
Yeah.
There are so many different verses. They actually have a Christmas version. They have I mean, you just go online and there's numerous versions. I love the Rufus Wainwright. He did one of the original ones that went on radio after Cohen wrote it. And Rufus is an amazing singer.
I also heard a Catholic priest in Ireland do it at a wedding.
A wedding.
Very staid, very conventional, classic Catholic priest at a wedding, and he did it.
Yeah.
And the whole congregation, including the bride and groom, were in shock. And he sang it so beautifully that he's become a celebrity.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
He did a beautiful job. Yeah, and I think they looked at him like, and at one point he looked up and his eyes went up in surprise, huh?
Yeah.
They
yeah.
never expected.
Well,
that.
you know, I do a lot of weddings as a pastor, and as a pastor or priest, they're not used to the person singing. And I'll sing like, you know, a big song, the prayer or the Lord's Prayer, one of these big, and they're thinking, was that the same guy who was doing? Because they don't expect, you know, a lot of the priests chant and do things and and
Yeah.
they're not necessarily great singers, but
This guy was.
Yeah, no, he was. I actually saw that on YouTube. It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
He did good.
He like customized it for them. It was
He
awesome.
did. He
He
did a
did.
beautiful job, and you just did it for us, and thank you.
Well,
Yes.
thanks.
I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
I miss my band every time I just play my little guitar and sing.
Oh, you did beautifully. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That was a gift.
Yes.
I love music, and when Randy comes to town, Peter's lifted up for a little while. And
It's good.
and we're so grateful to have him as a guest today. Randy's not just a wonderful singer and songwriter. He's also a man who's spent his career wherever the action is, wherever there is trauma, wherever there's been upheaval and cruelty and war. Randy's right there. And this is not a man who runs away. This is a man who runs to wherever the distress is. And of course, he's, from listening to me previously, he's a man after my own heart, and I really love it. But he's really spent a lot of time in some incredibly horrible situations, and he's brought sweetness to very difficult refugee camps. He's entertained troops in Iraq, Afghanistan, where else? Ukraine.
Ukraine. I'm going to be back there next month. Yeah, and they've got some major issues. We're going to try to go down the military there on the border.
See, I looked at him and he was smiling, and all of a sudden we mentioned that, and his brow got heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a heavy. So this is a man who can really shift gears and do some very, very important things to help folks going through horrible times who have been traumatized by horrible things that most people couldn't even imagine unless you've been on the front lines with the military. Like we've dealt with them many times in the nonprofit, but Randy goes out there voluntarily. He's a missionary. I have a number of missionary friends that have very different backgrounds such as mine, and they are also like that. Wherever their action is, they're there to help.
I say I'm a musicianary.
A what?
A musicianary.
Okay.
Because I always take my music with me. And even the troops, they really love just hearing some of the pop songs from America.
Oh, I'll
and
bet.
Christmas songs over Christmas. And it does give them a moment of peace.
Absolutely.
You know, which is
I
nice.
agree, and I could see why. It really is. But you know, you listen to Randy, and he sounds like he's just a performer in front of a microphone. Well, I got news for you folks.
He's much more.
Much more than that, and we had lunch. I wanted to make sure we could kind of channel some of his experience.
Yes.
And kind of focus it, and just to listen to some of the things that he has experienced, the people that he's comforted and come alongside in some of these refugee camps, and what they've been through with these terrorist organizations like ISIS. And Randy's been right there, and very dangerous kind of missions that he engages with, but he's right there to help the folks under tremendous evil persecution. And we'd like to find out, I'd like him to talk a little bit today about some of the things that he's experienced. Now, folks, I'll tell you what, he's got such a broad range of experiences. They're all, you know, we've talked about frontline workers, caregivers, and they're on the front lines where most people would rather not be. It's a part of life, it's a condition of life, but let's be honest, most of us would rather run the other way. And there's those folks that don't. We've talked about many caregivers, particularly from other cultures like Fiji and Haiti. They don't run away. It's part of their life. We've talked about the kinds of folks that face adversity and difficulty and don't run the other way, but engage it and work through it and hang in there with it. And you know the kind of person that can come out of that. They can either be bitter and hateful and very self-destructive, or they can come out incredibly hopeful and appreciative of life. And even the little things mean so much because they've seen so much devastation. Well, I think Randy's on a grander scale, to be honest with you, the kind of things that he's seen, and he's going to share some of those with us today. We're going to rely on Jenny to rein it in sometimes because he's got a broad
and here
range.
Here I come, I'm going to rein it in.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, and you will be back. You've been listening to The Survivor's Guide to Life on KPCA Petaluma 103.3 FM. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back to The Survivor's Guide to Life. I'm your host, Jenny Stevenson. And if you missed the first segment of our podcast, you missed something very special because our special guest, Randy Mayfield, sang Hallelujah, and we got to know a little bit about his work and what he's been doing. And we want to return now to hear some of the very challenging, hard work that Randy has done around the world to reach out very effectively to help people in need.
Okay, before he does, I want to say this to the folks, the listeners today. The United States has had, in the last 2 weeks, some incredible, horrible, evil things happen to some innocent people. And I think all of us have been deeply touched by the ugliness and the heartbreak that's happened in Gilroy, California, Dayton, Ohio, El Paso, Texas. And that they're actually acts of evil terror. There's no question. Innocent people are being murdered, and their loved ones are losing. They're losing their loved ones. It's just shocking. And all of us have been touched lately by how we don't just have one of these events; they're coming up more and more. And it's terrorism at its worst. Well, that's the world that Randy goes to and helps. He goes to the folks that have lived through such horrible, evil terror. That's what we want to hear from today, and I think we'll be able to. I think you'll be able to relate to it a little bit more now that after we were all being touched by such horror going on. Yeah. And Gilroy's 80 miles from here, and that was a nightmare 2 weeks ago. And then we see these other things. It's as ugly as it comes, and it's as heartbreaking as can be. But I'd like to kind of hear from Randy on some of his experiences, and I think that one of them that he mentioned at lunch.
He's been serving the last 10 years, correct me if I'm wrong, in a part of Kurdistan.
Yeah, northern Iraq, yeah.
Working with refugees and the effect of the ISIS occupation on the populations there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, 10 years ago when they were really in the heart of all what's going on. Thankfully, in the last 2 years, we've been helping rebuild and work with people that have been traumatized. But in the first several years, it was traumatic. It was Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso every day of their lives. And we think this tragic shock that we had here in America that we experience, and it wakes us up. But to be able to go and sit in the tents and in the homes with those people that were impacted. It's as though we were to go to El Paso and go to the homes of someone who was killed and sit down and talk to them and just help them work through what they're doing. That's been the privilege that I've had, is to be able to really meet some of those people. And my friend Jamal, he's a Jordanian, he really got the work going in developing relationships with people. We have a training center now that a lot of the refugees have come to be trained to do small jobs, sewing, cutting hair, IT. And when they leave our training center, the ladies leave with a sewing machine. The guys leave with their hair kits and IT. This is in Erbil, Iraq, which is northern Iraq in Kurdistan. And that's where a lot of the big camps were. So not only were there Muslim, Christian, Yazidi, and Syrian and Iraqi, I mean, it was a real mix of hundreds of thousands of people in these camps. Jordan has similar, we've been to the Jordan camps as well. They have similar refugee stuff. But to sit down, and we've seen the stories, we've heard the things, but to sit down and hear these family members, particularly with some of the Yazidi men whose wives were kidnapped, daughters were kidnapped, many of these wives and daughters killed. They share it with you as though they almost have blank expressions. It's just they're in a state of shock.
Sure.
And so none of us being professional counselors, but people that can offer them hope and love and care for them, bring them tangible things. One of the things we did in the beginning, they had nothing. I mean, UNICEF and some other, government agencies, GMOs or whatever, they would bring stuff in. But we kind of centered in on some key people in different places that really needed help. Took them clothes, took them food, took them things. And the same with the military who were fighting on the front lines. We would go there and take a truckload of supplies and just love on them. I'd play some music and just let them know that there are people that care about them, because they're out there taking the shots. And I mean, we were there when having lunch one time in a Quonset hut when the shots were going over us. And I can't imagine living that day to day. We'd go there for a brief period of time. That's what they lived through day to day. So the trauma in all those areas, in homes, in the military, and families, it's ongoing. It's these huge events daily. And that's what was it's hard to relate to.
It is hard to relate to, but there is a way that most people learn, believe it or not, to adapt during those horror shows, at least during the time that they have to be in there. The real post-traumatic stress, to be honest with you, where it hits is when they're away from it.
Yeah.
And that, all of a sudden, we've had that ourselves in helping a lot of trauma survivors, that we're frontline people too. It's not during the time that we're there coming alongside them. We're pretty good at that. It's the after effects and how it affects us. We've talked about on this show, I was a psychotherapist and been a PhD for, 50 years almost. And I didn't realize it, but my whole view of life was kind of objectified clinically, and I would see things in a way that was clinical. I thought I was there to help people, and I was, to recover from trauma. Here's one of the things I learned. It's a shell that we can erect to protect ourselves from feeling what's really happening. So today, and I reassured Randy today, he's got more clinical labels to talk about than I do, so I don't let him do that. But honestly, it's when we go through enough trauma, the truth of the matter is you can build very high, strong walls to cut yourself off from the effects of it, or you can become a human being with a lot of heart and soul and compassion and empathy that you never would have had otherwise. It always comes through suffering and pain and struggle, always. And it strips us down to our very core of who we are. All our protection is gone, our sense of security is gone, our sense of control is gone, and then we are left to face ourselves and go, now what? We're exposed. And a lot of times I know, being the strong man that everybody thinks that I am, and I am. The truth of the matter is the kind of things that I've gone through in work and with my own personal life, I'm so far beyond my own personal capabilities and capacities at this point. And I know there's a greater power in this world, in this life, beside mine. And I rely on that. That's my faith, and that's my trust. And I've come to that the hard way. I wasn't one of these people that was some kind of fervent religious person. I may have been raised that way, but I was certainly not part of that. But it's something personal. And then I realized I got to go on. There's something that I'm called to do and engage with these difficulties. But what it puts me through personally is so human, and it breaks me over and over again, that I come to face myself as I really am. Not what I profess to be, not what my degrees are and my clinical training or whatever, but who I really am. And I find my strengths, and I also find my weaknesses. It's at those times my weaknesses are time for me to, it's funny, that's where the strength begins to come, and I see it for what it is. My whole life is dedicated to that. And interesting, what I'm finding out as I get to know more about Randy, so is his. And he's been on the front lines a long time. You know, I didn't want to probe, and we'd all get indigestion at lunch, but I'm sure this has had a great effect on it. It's tough. And we've talked about the effects that this has on our as caregivers. Randy's a caregiver on a grand scale.
Yes.
But it affects our personal lives. It affects how we sleep, our health, all of that. And we talk about that a great deal because we want caregivers who are going to be the ones that engage like we do and are on the front lines to learn how to take care of themselves. Because if you're in this for the long haul, you better know how to take care of yourself, because this is the kind of thing that breaks us down. Our health goes. We've seen incredible percentages of caregivers not make it. Die before the people are taking care of them. I think it's 63%. Enormous.
Wow.
So we look at that, and I listen to Randy and go, oh my God, look at what he has been through.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering, now how's this affected his life? He has a beautiful life here. He's got a beautiful, good wife. She's a lovely girl. He's got a family here. And he's used to seeing the most incredible tragedies and heartbreak. And when you're like that and you're a caregiver, it's kind of hard to think of yourself after a while. And it's almost like you begin to, there's a voice in your head that goes, you're being selfish if you think of yourself. And that is not the truth. It's a committee, we call it the committee. That is not true. But at the same time, it's so human to have that happen. And Randy has seen some incredible tragedies. He's already alluded to a few. I'd like to hear a little bit more. And I don't want to leave Randy out of the occasion as a human being. I mean, this has definitely affected him. A wonderful performer, a pleasant, engaging, sweet guy. And you know he's human. And he goes where the action is. So it's definitely affected him. Maybe he'll share some of that with us. But anyway, tell us a little bit. I'd love to hear more. So you've been in northern Iraq? Is that right?
Yeah, mostly northern Iraq. I mean, we have worked down in Baghdad, but most of the refugees and stuff are up north.
Do you go with a group, or how do you
sometimes I go with my friend Jamal. It's just the two of us, maybe
really?
3 or 4. Not big groups. You don't want to be wandering around with the military and up in Iraq with a big group of people.
So there's no protection for you?
No, when we travel up to the borders, we do travel with a military. I'm not going to say a convoy, but a couple of armed cars that go up and get us to the...
You do?
Yeah. Especially when things were going on in Mosul, and we go up in there, you had to really be careful.
In
And the
Mosul?
Kurdish army could only go to the border of Mosul. They couldn't go in because it's Iraq. And so even though they're northern Iraq, Kurdistan has its own thing. So the Iraqi army was really doing all this work for a long time. And it wasn't going well because the Kurds are the ones who, I mean, they make it happen, to be honest, the Peshmerga army. But when the Americans went in the last few years and came alongside the Iraqis, you know, they moved ISIS out. That's all I'm going to say. They didn't eliminate ISIS. They moved them out. A lot of them are in Syria now. And other groups pop up. So it's an ongoing conflict and an ongoing trauma. And like you say, when they're in the middle of it, they handle it well. It's coming back, it's stepping out. When we talk to the families who've had experienced the trauma and everything, yeah, that's when they're really dealing with, what do I do? You know, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I can't relate, you know, because of all this stuff that has happened. And
how do they decompress from something like that?
You know, we sit down with them and talk and share a meal. We bring food, we bring stuff to help them. We help them in the training camps. We encourage them with a lot of positive influence. And like I say, we offer them hope with work that they don't have. We offer them hope, like you say, there's a higher power that they can turn to. Many of them do. And so anyway, especially tangibly, hands-on, being there, caring for them, loving them, encouraging them. Just knowing that Jamal and I come in with one or two others on occasion, because of them, they know what it takes for us to get there physically.
Yeah.
And it's like huge for them. And it's like any caregiver, that the fact they show up at the home and they care and they take care of you, that means a lot. The care has to be good as well. And one of the things we talked about at lunch, sometimes we send people that aren't really trained and ready to give care, and that can cause damage.
That does. You're right. We've talked about that too, and we have been called in a lot, more and more, because of the show and our my wife, we're calling it Lynn's Legacy. We've been called in, and boy, we see caregivers that don't do. If they did a good job, they're burned out, and they don't become, they're not good anymore. But you know what? I'm kind of I'm listening to what you do. My God, that is dangerous work. But you're bringing something that to me is so important. You're bringing some loving, nourishing energy to people that have been absolutely beaten. It's been beaten out of them because of the life, their experiences, and you're bringing a selfless kind of energy to them, to uplift them, to feed them, to fuel them, not to just introspect with them and speak philosophically or religiously, but to show them that you care and that you help them get through each.
Absolutely. I mean, I have many, many friends in the military and in the refugee camps.
Mm-hmm.
They're friends. They're not clients.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, you know what I mean? We've built relationships, and that's huge, you know.
That's the best way to go. That's the only way. As far as I'm concerned at this point, that's the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Being human, you talk about that a lot. You gotta be
Absolutely.
human.
But you know, you got to go through this.
Let's take a break there. Being human, because that is a key. And let's return to
We're
it.
taking a break on being human?
We got to.
What do we become if not human?
No, we'll be human when we get back.
Oh, okay.
All right. You've been listening to The Survivor's Guide to Life on KPCA Petaluma 103.3 FM. We will be back after a short break. Our guest, and he has been giving us some of the intense experiences that he has had serving in the refugee camps and on the front lines in Kurdistan in Iraq. We've been talking about Randy as a caregiver and about the effects of the work on him and also on the people that he works with, his team members. And how does he decompress? How does he help people that he goes in to see in the refugee camp recover, decompress? How does he help people in that way?
Well, who are you talking about decompressing? Randy and his friend
Yeah,
Jamal?
both, I think, yeah, really.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would like to, I'm interested in that. I'd like to, if Randy could draw us a picture a little bit of some of the conditions that he sees, I think it would give us a different sensitivity and flavor.
Yes.
And could you tell us a little bit more about what, I know it's painful to talk about.
No, you know, it's really not, because I feel like, again, my purpose is to bring hope into that. And let me just share a story. This is a typical story. I have so many of these where we sit down with people and talk, and they open up to share their stories. They're very different than I am culturally and in every way, but they know that they sense that we're there because we care for them. And one of the ladies who came to our training center that we have right by the refugee camps, we got a little condominium right by the refugee camps where they can walk to, because making everything easy. She was there for the sewing class with about, I'd say, maybe 18 to 20 other women. And we're just sitting in a circle afterwards. We gave them a little graduation certificate. They got their sewing machines. And we're just saying, hey, this has been great. Thanks for coming, and there'll be a lot more things going on. And anybody want to, just tell us where, what's going on in your life. And one lady, I would say she's probably, it's hard to tell sometimes. She was in her full hijab, but I think she was 50-ish. Was telling us a story about her son who was captured by ISIS. And this is where it gets really human, and for me, it's hard to talk about. But she shared that her son was captured, and he was shot after he was tortured, and he was dismembered, and they sent her photos. ISIS sent photos to her home, and they hung him upside down in the square. And this is her son, and she's telling us the story. Of course, she's weeping. And what do you do when these are stories that you're hearing. You're hearing from the Yazidis of their daughters who were kidnapped and raped, their wives who were killed. What do you do? Pat them on the back, say, wow, that's way to hang in there. We build a relationship, and we try to offer them the hope that we have. And we tangibly help them. Some of them physically needed help in just, things. So you do that.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have great examples, people who give. Your gift will make a way for you. And I always say, the fact that we can take something tangible opens the door to this relationship. It's not a bribe, but it's a way to say, we need these people. We don't know them yet, but it gives us the opportunity to get to know them. And then we share, and we do have some counselors, professional, that go. I'm not one of them. I'm there to be more of an encouragement, to listen. Listening is so huge, you guys know that, even in counseling. Listening is huge. And for her to be able to share her story and get it out there where she knew people cared about her and would be thinking of her, that was a little bit of a catharsis for her as well. And another woman didn't share the whole story, but said, I went through a similar thing. A family that I've gotten to know well, I've known their little girls for 10 years, from being 7 and 8-year-olds to being teenagers. We'd sit at the dinner table with them. The mom would prepare a typical Kurdish meal, and we'd eat and talk, and I've got to know the girls. They call me Uncle Randy, and they share stories of their aunt who was just cut into pieces, thrown in a river by ISIS. This is dinner talk. Can you imagine the life that these little girls and this family, the impact that these kind of things have had on them? How can we even begin to think we're gonna help these people?
Well, I'll tell you something. Listening to some things that are going through my mind that are, we've talked about the caregiving relationship and how many very difficult situations caregivers, and this is on a grand tragic scale, that's an understatement, but one of the things is the exchange that goes on in just listening or being there to love and to nurture and care for them. And as a caregiver, your energy is that nourishment, that love, that caring, and it's going out to these folks.
There's a healing in that. There really is.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. One of the things, though, is there is an exchange of energy, and even though you're giving it, you're also absorbing some incredible pain and horror, nightmarish things that most of us here in the United States can't even relate to unless you're military or unless you've been in Gilroy or El Paso or Dayton lately. But you've spent a lifetime with folks like this. I'm listening to that and I'm going, now I know what we absorb, and I know the pain and distress. And we talked about catharsis. You mentioned talking about it is absolutely an important part. We find that really does help folks that are carrying such horrible burdens. The problem is the burdens we wind up absorbing as caregivers, and how do we take care of ourselves? Now, I've talked to you personally, and you've shared a little bit with me. It's certainly nothing we don't know about, and not about you, but all of ourselves. That when we absorb it, we're human, and it affects us. It affects our personal lives. It affects our health. Affects our ability to sleep. It affects. We become backed up with this emotional pain, and it can get pretty. We call it a toxic kind of buildup. It happens to all caregivers. The key to me really is, okay, we know what we have to go through. We know the people we help and what they go through. It's rough. And here I am sitting with Randy today listening to this. Go, oh my God, this is like a whole different level of this that is so intense and so mind-boggling. And these people live through this. And he mentioned how they'll put there's that veil of, they just begin to shut down and numb out. That's survival. That has to happen. The key really is, when they're in the midst of it, that's the kind of things our nervous system automatically does, and we need it. The key really is, after it's over, the decompression. And it has to happen, otherwise folks develop some very serious post-traumatic stress, to say the least. And it carries on, it carries through in many things. They can reenact it and be very destructive to themselves. But also the caregivers. Listen to what you've been through. And I said, here we sit with a man who's absolutely a charmer and a delight, and I love him. And he really shares a lot of very wonderful things. And I'm wondering, how's this all affected you? You got a beautiful wife at home. How's it affect her?
Yeah, no, it does.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
You know, you don't always sit back and realize that, because I almost every month I go out and do something, so it's kind of a part of life, back and forth. The back and forth is difficult. Like I was sharing with you guys at lunch, when you come home, even just little tangible things, like when I go to the sink to brush my teeth or drink water, can I do it? Can I drink this water? That's a little thing. But you're so used to this different thing. And then the stories and the people you've met that you know, that you love, I know it has an impact. I mean, I don't sleep. I've talked to you about that. I can say I'm an addict. I'm addicted to Ambien, which is terrible. I've got to go through, my doctor says I got to go through a basic, just like an alcoholic would, go through a withdrawal. And that was because it started out as I'm traveling into different time zones every few weeks, and I can't get to sleep the first 2 nights, and then you get addicted to sleeping. But now, even with the meds, it's very difficult for me to sleep more than a few hours at night. And I know that impacts me. It has had an impact on my relationship. 10 years ago, we kind of hit a wall. I know it has with my wife, also relationships with others. And I did catch some of that and was able to kind of back up a little bit and say, okay, how is this going to... I don't think I did a great job. After 40 years, I am tired, and I am older, and I'm now pretty out of shape. And I realized, okay, I'm probably going to back off a little bit. My travel schedule next year already is much less. To my wife's thrill. I mean, I don't know that she wants to have me home more, but she knows. And you know, I have nowhere to come back and kind of decompress. I come back and get right back into my job and my work and my family, and there's no one there saying, how are you feeling? How's it going? So I don't even get the privilege of having what I try to offer to them. Somebody to say, let me listen to you, let me hear your heart, let me hear what's going on. I don't resent that because I know that God's given me some graces that have allowed me to take that on. He wouldn't have called me to this if he didn't. So, but I'm not a superhuman.
No.
You know, physically, emotionally, anything else. And so, yeah, that stuff is there, and at times I really do recognize it. Other times I don't, and like you say, you just go on, I am who I am. That's the one good thing, too, is when I'm on the stage, I'm on the stage, but when I'm off the stage, I'm still on the stage. You know, my life is just that way. Well, my wife will tell you, I'm consistent at home as I am. I'm a knucklehead wherever I am. At least that's consistent.
You mean you perform at home, too?
Well, I just mean I tend to have a joy and an exuberance for life that I don't have to make up. You know, like when you get on the stage and you entertain, you don't have to, you know, make it up to do it. That's who I am. So that's probably one grace that I have.
Well, it's a relief.
But it doesn't take care of a lot of those other issues that I don't even know what they are, to be honest. I haven't been to a counselor for this, really.
Well, you know, we don't even call ourselves counselors. We call ourselves consultants and mentors and coaches for life. Coaches that specialize in recovering from trauma and trauma relief. Maybe, you know, maybe God brought you here for a reason and hooked us all up. Yeah. Because this is things that we use this show for every week. Because you're not alone. Although your experiences are uniquely terrible, horrible, heartbreaking. The process that you're talking about as a caregiver is very universal. We talked about, well, talking helps. Well, to be honest with you, it's not enough.
No.
When you absorb that much, it affects you physically, it affects you, your nervous system, it affects how you're tuned. You're more tuned for the adversity of the front lines, like most of the...
But you still do have that, sense, who am I to bring up my little mental problems and issues when I'm dealing with people that are getting blown up?
You mentioned at lunch, you mentioned the guilt that you feel when you come home because you can come home and leave it behind.
Which is one of those things that anybody who deals with this and helps people in really rough shape comes out with. It's a guilt, it is a form of PTS. I mean, who doesn't go through that? And it's also a sign that a wake-up call. It's a warning flag. When that starts happening, you lost your sense of boundaries, and you're not going to take care of yourself as well because other people their needs become more important than your own. The problem with caregivers like yourself or myself and Jenny, who engage, is we can lose sight of ourselves, and that's when trouble can begin to emerge. We call it not emotional fatigue. What do you call it? Compassion fatigue. And when you see people run into that, you know you run into it. We all have. Listen to what you go through. But it's what it leads to if you don't deal with it in your body and what it begins to do, and that leads to eventual burnout. The burnout is when you have absolutely lost touch with your own needs and your relationships and your own health and well-being, because in your mind you're going, how can I worry about myself or come home to this beautiful home with my beautiful wife, and I've just left people that have been butchered and killed and murdered, and they don't have clean water, they don't have anything. How can I think of myself? Well, the truth is, to be in this for the long haul, you have to think of yourself. You've been doing this 40 years. I don't know what your plan is for life, but I can tell you, I don't know if it's over. I know I'm not, and I'm 10 years old.
Oh, no, I mean, I may retire from my current job, but I don't see me ever stopping until I can't physically do it.
That's okay.
And I mean, my wife's aware of that too. No matter where we end up settling after retirement, I'll be going and doing some things because that's just
I agree with
who you are, you know.
And you know, people have said to me, when are you going to retire? I look at them, you're kidding. I said, I have more purpose in my life today than I had years ago.
Yeah.
And I have no intention of retiring.
And now you got all the connections. You know, you didn't have it 40 years ago.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm building on them. But I'll tell you what, it's human-to-human connections.
Yeah,
Even in the
absolutely.
most high levels of military. I can go and I have friends that are in command. But it's human-to-human. It's not general or admiral to
Exactly.
doctor. It's different. And that's what I find. Those are long-lasting. I love those. Because it's made up of a network of people that care. No matter what they are, what their ranks are, or what their position in life is, they care as much as I do. And we all, I can pick up a phone, I've talked to an admiral in 3 years, and they hear it's me, and they say, what do you need? Mm-hmm. And I can lay it out, and they're going to do whatever they can. Same thing back to me. And we've done it for each other. Again, it's personal. It's not system. It's not part of the system. And I believe that works best. But it's
You've been listening. I'm going to jump right in.
I've been listening to what?
You've been listening to
To
the
myself.
Survivor. Yes, and so now I guess you have to listen to me. I'm sorry. You've been listening to the Survivor's Guide to Life on KPCA Petaluma 103.3 FM. We will be back after a short break. Welcome back to the Survivor's Guide to Life. I'm your host, Jenny Stevenson. I don't really want to summarize everything because I want to leave as much time as possible for Peter and Randy, but we're talking about the cost, personally, of serving people who are in horrific, traumatic situations. And how do we take care of ourselves? How do we even give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves?
Oh, I just remembered. Okay, so what Randy, I don't mean to sound clerical. What Randy's talking about is secondary traumatization. That he's around others that are in trauma, and we begin to take it on. We all have that. That's what you're describing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it does affect our health, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we're finding with caregivers is we get hurt. And our health gets hurt. And I've been in athletics, and I'm an intense adrenaline kind of guy, to say the least. And since I've been caregiving for my wife as well as others, I got hurt. I very rarely get hurt that lasts more than a couple of days. And I have one tear. It took close to a year. And I'm still in trouble with it. And one of the people that was helping me says, she said, all caregivers, when they get hurt, it takes much longer to heal, and they get hurt more.
Yes.
How many people have come to us asking for help, families, and you listen to how long they've been the caregiver, and they have double hernias, they have tears, they have this, they have that. Jenny got hurt.
I got hurt too.
Yeah, she got hurt with my wife.
I pushed myself too hard. And that is one of the things that caregivers do when they're in compassion fatigue, secondary trauma.
Yeah,
They miss the signals,
Mm-hmm.
which is why, as Peter says, it's not just something you can think about and talk about. It also is something that lives in your body.
Well, one of the things I wanted to share with Randy, which we have in our work, is that we deal with the body and the nervous system. Once you've been in that hyper-alert situation, like he's in, you have to be on hyper-arousal. It's just the situation, everything demands
It's
it.
life
Even
and
though
death.
he
Truly for Randy, this is life
absolutely,
and
and he's engaged with it so much. That means his system at this point is stuck probably in hyper-alert, hyper-arousal. The problem is it probably has a difficult time, I'm sure, going into the normal self-regulation where it lets down.
Mm-hmm.
He uses music, I mean, beautifully.
Yes.
But I would say at this point it's not enough, even though he does so much of it, and beautifully done too, I gotta say.
Thank you.
I'm one of his fans. But I also know when it's like that, you've got to be able to discharge what's been imprinted, and he does listen to what the kind of relationship exchanges, the environment. He's just scratching the surface with us, from compared to what he told us at lunch, of all the situations he's been in, and he brings a love and a joy and a caring and an energy to help these people have some hope.
In a selfless way.
In a very selfless way. There's a problem. The problem is, how's he going to take care of himself and get rid of that?
Get back to...
And that's what, talking, I just want to say this, what Randy's listing, and we've talked about it before, isn't enough. Although a lot of organizations that we help are involved with, they believe it really is a big help, and it is. But it takes more because your body's absorbed that energy, and then the body begins to break down. You've got to get rid of the traumatic charges in their system so it can go back to self-regulation. Otherwise, you're going to be always on hyper alert. Now, we just heard what Randy works in, right?
Yes.
Now, he comes home to his lovely wife, his beautiful environment, and he's geared toward battlefield. He's geared to the front lines. You come home, that doesn't just go away. You just don't transition and go, oh, okay, everything's fine now, and I'm just going to have a wonderful life. It doesn't work that way. So it's just like the vets that come back with PTSD. We don't even call it disorder, but PTSD after what they've been through. They're looking for snipers in every corner of a building downtown.
And it's something they actually can take pride in, that this is part of who they are and this is the way it's going to be.
Well, that you're talking about the Navy SEAL.
That's the secret.
Yeah, they do take pride in that.
Mhm.
Yeah, their friends are
Well, you know, and that you're talking a lot about the physical, which is certainly true.
Yeah.
But I think my whole sleep issues are my mind never stops.
That's
It's spinning constantly with
That's right.
all these things. And it's not necessarily I'm visualizing all the trauma.
No,
It's just,
it's visceral.
yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
just like, you know.
Okay,
And that's
that
really
happens to all-
frustrating.
oh, that's
Yeah.
one of the that's one of the biggest symptoms. I hate to call it that because that sounds clinical, but it's true.
Mhm.
And I know I don't sleep much anymore with my wife being sick, and I'm watching her all night
Mhm.
after working till 9, 10 at night.
Yeah.
But and I know I'm tired, but I'll be honest with you, my system is geared toward making sure Lynn's okay, and if
Yeah.
there's anything going on, I'll be up instantly
Yeah.
to take care of her. It doesn't make for great sleep.
No.
And my body hurts. And that's for sure. I've also learned, and I've done this for a long time professionally, I will take time personally to have a good cry or let out. Being an angry guy like I am, be honest with you, some of my grief comes out in intense anger.
Mhm.
Not at anybody most of the time, thank you. Oh, heaven no. But it's there, and I don't like it. And I have to get rid of that.
Mhm.
And if I don't, it causes, I scare people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. But I look at all of that and I'm going, you know, this is what happens when people are under some incredible distress. So what do? You've got to discharge that, and you've got to just decompress. Randy absorbs way more than most people.
Yes.
And don't get mad at me. I saw him the other day and I said, he's not taking care of himself. He's letting himself go, and I know why. Look at what he's been doing. I look at his wife, and she looks like she's right out of a magazine. She's so beautiful and well cared for, and Randy's been on the front lines. He's in the battlefield. She's not. And I look at that and I go, I know this one. I went through this with my wife too. It's hard to come together when my orientation has been so intense, and hers hasn't always been like that. And then we can't relate.
You come home and you want to crash, and she's ready to do something because you just got home. Let's go out, let's have some fun. I just want to crash. You know, and I saw that, like you say, physically. 2 years ago, I was 60 pounds lighter than I am right now.
I remember.
So just, you know, sitting around thinking, and the other thing, you know, it's not just when I'm there. I have made a lot of friends, and with social media today, I have Iraqis, Hungarians, Ukrainians on my website, and I'm texting me 3 and 4 in the morning. Now, I turn my phone off because I have to, but every morning I'm welcomed with, you know, dozens of
Really?
needs, requests, you know, come see us again type stuff. And again, it just kind of, it's hard to get away from that and just chill.
Well, with social media, it is. But I get that too. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, and when I get up at 3, 4 in the morning, guess what I do?
Yeah,
I check my.
I know.
And you know, I look at myself
ridiculous.
and
I
go,
do the same thing.
You got to stop.
I know it. It's a sickness.
But go
It's an
talk-
addiction too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But go talk to how many people who are on the front lines wind up doing that.
Yeah.
It's so common. The key really is that going to break us down? And the answer is yes. We're not equipped to be on a high burn in our adrenal system and our 24/7. And if that's going on, your health is going to suffer. You've got to find some ways to decompress, and you've got to begin to let down. I'm listening to what you do, and I'm going, wow. I mean, this is amazing, and he's been doing it a long time.
Yes.
And bringing I can attest to how much joy and love and uplifting this man brings. I can also look at how he's tired, and he's not taking care of his own life. That's not okay. I feel bad seeing somebody I care about who brings me such joy and love, and I go, oh no, we don't need a tragedy here.
No.
How many have we had in the last few years, where we see people that are so filled with giving and loving and caring, and they're gone.
And
They
then they're
die.
gone.
And we go, oh. And either
Oh, that's encouraging. Thanks so much. I'm feeling good.
well, we're all in the
No,
same
but you know,
boat. We're
you know
all
one of
in
the things.
same boat,
You know one of
though.
the things I fear. I think right now, because I'm nearing retirement from my 40 years in one place. What am I going to do? Because I have been. I mean, that's who I am. It's not that I'm a great guy. I am, but I mean, it's not that. It's not because I'm a great guy that I do what I do. That's what I'm called and driven to do. That's who I am. So I'm thinking now. I'm getting ready to say. That's not who I am, but it's still going to be me. I just won't have the same way to do it. So I worry about when I quote retire. I do need to slow down for
Okay.
my wife's sake and my family's sake, but how do I do that?
Okay, two things you just mentioned. One is you talked about slowing down. I've had so many friends of mine retire, and it doesn't work out well. And
They slow down so much you have to bury them, right? Yeah.
yeah, he makes a joke,
Isn't
but
that
it's
true?
the
No, I
truth.
mean seriously.
Isn't that true?
It's the truth. And I'm listening to this, and one of the things they were very energetic, every one of them. They lost their sense of purpose. And once you lose your sense of purpose, well, things can begin to happen.
Mm-hmm.
With a guy who's been on the front lines as much as you have, you would need to go to a modification. But for you to give up a sense of purpose,
Yeah.
it would be deadly.
Right. No, I agree.
And you've been to take better care of yourself physically, absolutely.
Yeah.
To be with your lovely wife more, absolutely, and work out.
Yeah.
Believe me, you have to rebuild that relationship when you've been away. And
Oh, yeah,
You have
absolutely.
to. And I talked to her yesterday, the two of you, and I saw she's missing you.
Yeah.
She wants you to be better, and she cares. I'll tell you one
Right.
thing: your wife cares about you.
No, I know she does. I definitely know.
and that's you are so.
And I care about her, so it's reciprocal. I need to get my act together so that,
It's worth it.
she feels better
It's
about it.
worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I wish. I was just looking at a picture of my wife who spent all this time together. She was at my side for 46 years, and now she's at the other end of
Yeah.
things. I miss her.
Yeah.
And then I see you have such a lovely wife. I had that too.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, don't let it go.
Yeah.
Because it's a gift.
As long as you have it, hang on.
It's
to
a
it.
gift.
Yeah.
And these gifts, what we've learned about, we're human, and then there's a condition of life meaning we're all going to come to an end. Sickness hits, death and dying hits. Appreciate what you got while you got it. Now, you're a man that's been seeing the preciousness of life. The key really is decompressing enough to begin to appreciate the little things in life. You have some good stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
You got a nice car, and you don't care about it.
No, I
Okay,
absolutely don't.
that's him. That's not
He
me.
does.
Yeah.
I-
I had the Corvette at one time.
Yeah, no.
I was younger.
No, this is season 6. Well, I'm older, and
I was only 30 when I had mine. So.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to say how old I am. And I've had more than one, and I love them. The faster, the better.
Yeah, there you
But
go.
anyway, and I agree, and the same thing with horses. The better cutting
Yeah.
horses, the better. But I'll tell you what, the thing that I've learned more is the value of preciousness of life, and that the simple things in life that we have, they don't last forever. Make the best of them, and do whatever you have to do to get yourself aligned with really embracing the gifts you have.
Mhm.
You're a man that's been gifted. You've seen the worst tragedies that we could even imagine, and that's left an effect on you. It has to. You're a human
Yeah.
being. Okay. So the transition is the hard part. Some people don't. Most people that we've helped struggle with that transition.
Very much so, yes.
And they need help. I don't think counseling is the answer anymore. I almost think you need somebody to mentor you and coach you through it. Somebody who can help your body. That's what we do.
Mhm.
I think it takes that, because one of the things we've learned about counseling, and you're talking to somebody who was a therapist for years, it won't last. It won't hold, and I'll tell you why. Because that tuning in your nervous system
Mhm.
gets triggered, and guess what? It overrides all the
Right.
best counseling
Yeah.
you ever said. And you go,
Of override.
override.
Yeah,
Okay.
speaking of
Jenny's
overriding.
eyes are bugging
I
out of her
have
head.
to override. This is my job. What can I say?
What?
And we knew that today would fly by.
Oh, wow.
And it has.
No.
And we must somehow have Randy back.
Okay, when do we get this guy back?
Well, we'll have to twist his arm
Well,
or something.
I will be
I'm being
back, I'm
silly,
sure.
but
I'm
no,
sure
we
we'll be.
must have
What
Randy
about
back.
doing like a remote
We
kind of
might be able
interview?
to do that.
Can we do that?
Yeah,
We'll
you,
talk
you,
about
you can
that.
call me up when I'm in Iraq next December.
Wonderful.
We've had
So-
friends of ours in the military that do that.
Yeah.
And they, when they were freaking out in Mosul, they were calling me
Yeah.
at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So thank you, Randy.
Thank you so much.
for
Enjoyed
coming
being with
by.
you.
We
And
are so
do
glad to have
want
you.
you to come back.
Thank you. I'd
I
love
didn't
to.
realize
Whether
what
it's
a real...
virtually or in person.
Good,
We
that'd be
want
great.
that.
Be
Thank
great.
Oh, I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's more of a bond than I realized.
Yeah.
And it's so sweet. Thank you. Thank
You've
you
been
for
listening to
being
The Survivor's Guide to Life on KPCA Petaluma 103.3 FM. I'm Jenny Stevenson, your host. If you'd like to know more about our show or Dr. Bernstein, please visit our website at thesurvivorsguidetolife.com. Thank you for listening.
here. Thank you.